In 1982, 15-year-old Margaret Carabetta was living in Tucson, Arizona, with her mother Judy, after her parents' recent divorce. Margaret was a sophomore at Saguaro High School, which she very much enjoyed. While Margaret and her mother's home was outside of Saguaro High School's district, she kept her father's address as a way of staying enrolled there. Margaret's friends said that the divorce of her parents deeply affected her, and that she was a private and reserved person as a result. Though quiet, and lacking truly close friendships, she was considered very friendly and well known by the peers at her school. Her mother, Judy, described Margaret as someone who was just discovering her self-worth and beauty, and enjoying where life was taking her, saying she really liked herself. She didn't like anything more than she liked being alive. Her mother stated that she was just beginning to make closer friends, dipping her toes into dating, and that she was your average teenager in the 1980s. Judy claims she was indifferent towards school itself. She had good courses and bad courses, but she attended regularly and had a good attitude about it. She was simply enjoying her teenage years, as she should have been. The murder. On April 8, 1982, Judy was heading to work a shift at her job at a local bar, when she asked Margaret for help putting the top up on her convertible before leaving. Judy recalled that Margaret was a bit grumpy about being asked to help, and as she walked back inside, Judy yelled to her, "Hey, give me one more look," a line from the movie A Star is Born. Margaret smiled and laughed, and that is Judy's very last image of her only daughter. Later in the evening, during Judy's shift, she wanted to check in on Margaret, who was at home alone. She called Margaret sometime between 10:40 to 11 p.m., and the two chatted for a bit before Judy told her she would see Margaret when she gets home. One source stated that Margaret made a phone call to a friend around 11 p.m. that evening. Judy would arrive at her home located in the 2800 of North Woodland Avenue somewhere between the time of 1:15 a.m. and 1:30 a.m., where she discovered her front door wide open, and their dog outside on the front lawn. When entering the home, Judy would discover her daughter missing. Extremely concerned, Judy called the local Tucson police to report Margaret as missing, but sadly, police told her she can either wait 24 hours to report her as missing, or report her as a runaway. Judy knew Margaret would never up and leave, so she decided to wait the 24 hours, but, while doing so, she would search for her daughter herself. The next morning, two elderly women were taking a morning hike around the Catalina foothills, near North Pinchot Road and Craycroft Road, in an area well known as a lover's lane. At 8 a.m., the two stumbled upon the body of a teenage girl. The girl had been lying face down, with her hands tied behind her back with rope, and had suffered a blow to the head. She was wearing a red print t-shirt and a pair of underwear. During the autopsy, it was determined that the blow to the head was from a rock, and that there was no evidence of any sexual assault. 2 days later, the body was identified as missing Margaret Carabetta, through dental records. When learning about her daughter's murder, Judy recalled, "I wasn't watching the TV news when they reported finding a body. I guess that was good, they would have had to scrape me off the walls." Investigators were quick to piece together a timeline of the murder. A couple came forward during the investigation to claim that they had seen the body lying at the Lover's Lane at 12:30 a.m. on the same morning Margaret was killed, but they did not report the body out of fear. It was also determined that the friend that Margaret had called at 11 p.m. the evening of April 8, later reported as Margaret's boyfriend, had come to the Carabetta home that evening, as well. The boyfriend claimed that he had been picked up by another friend and left, when Margaret had gotten ready for bed. This led police to believe that Margaret had gotten ready for bed wearing her t-shirt and underwear, when someone she knew had come to the door, and Margaret had left with them willingly. Note, I find this detail strange, as, if Margaret left willingly, why would she leave the door wide open? Police are unsure if Margaret was killed where her body was found, or elsewhere, but they do believe that she was murdered due to rejecting the killer's sexual advances. The next month, in May of 1982, a Tucson woman reported being raped at her home near North Alvernon Way and East Fort Lowell Road. The man responsible for her rape, 21-year-old William Fred Garrison, said to the woman during the attack, "Be quiet, or you'll end up like that girl at the end of Craycroft," while holding a knife to her throat. Due to his statements during the attack, Garrison was looked at as a potential suspect for the murder of Margaret, but due to lack of evidence, he was never charged with her death. He was however arrested and charged with 2 counts of rape. The last publicly known move in the investigation was in January of 2007, when investigators had sent the rope, t-shirt, and underwear in for DNA testing, in hopes of finding a link to a potential suspect. Sadly, No reports were ever made after they submitted the evidence, so there is no telling what was discovered. The case is still unsolved, and now, very cold, 1 month shy of the 41st anniversary of Margaret's death. Margaret's family, including a brother Benjamin who lives in Mesa, are still holding out hope that the murder of Margaret will be solved one day, and her killer brought to justice. In April of 1982, a classmate of Margaret's, Lori Clover, wrote into a local newspaper with a plea, stating, "A plea for justice. I am a student at the Saguaro High School. I was a friend of Margaret Carabetta. Margaret was a sweet girl who often wore a smile on her face. She was always willing to give a helping hand to a friend, even when she had problems of her own. It's a shame that such a beautiful person, inside and out, was killed in such a tragic and violent way. What is this world coming to that we must live in constant fear even in our own homes? Crime has become so terrible that even daylight brings no safety. All I am praying for is to see justice done, to find the killer who killed my friend in such a cruel, inhumane way. I ask for your cooperation to help fight crime, to make our streets safe to walk on again, and to make our world a little more perfect, not a living hell, wondering what will happen tomorrow or the day after."